Hello and welcome to the Well Played Podcast, and thank you for joining us. Today we're talking about why Nintendo hates dolphins, how Fable might just be a fairy tale still, and Jeff Keighley has something to show you. I'm Warren Curtis, and today I'm joined by...
Hi, I'm Amanda.
Before we get into it, let's talk about what it is we do here at Well Played. We're going to be bringing you the news and rumors from the week past, and we're going to be talking about all these rumors and putting them in context all in one place, all the news stories, and giving them some reason and understanding behind them. We're going to give you some commentary about our opinions on them and what we've heard from other people. And we're going to make sure that it's easy to understand why they're important and what they mean. You're also probably going to get some reviews from us. We're going to talk about new games, things like that. There's some new games this week we're going to touch on briefly. Haven't had the chance to play them because, hey, they came out today and we're doing this. So... other than that, you can find us on YouTube, where all of our content is going to be archived under the username Amarren Studios. You can join us on Twitter at Amarren Studios, Amarren Studios. Amanda Warren. That's how we did that. You can subscribe to the audio version of the show wherever you get your pods. That's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio. We're on Anchor. We're on Stitcher. Podbean, Good Pods, we're everywhere. And be sure to comment, give us a thumbs up here on YouTube, ring that bell, let you know when we're posting new content or when we go live, once we actually figure out how to do that. And then be sure to like and subscribe and follow on whatever platform it is. Leave those ratings. It helps people find the show. It's very important for visibility to share with everybody else. With that said, we have lots to talk about this week.
We do.
So let's get into the news.
Well, nobody wanted to make Redfall.
No, nobody did want to make Redfall. This story comes from Jason Schreier over at Bloomberg, who reports that approximately 70% of the staff who worked on Prey at Arcane Austin left during the development of Redfall. Development of Redfall started in 2018. That was obviously Prey just came out. They moved right into Redfall.
Wasn't it rumored the parent company, ZeniMax, was looking to sell?
Yeah, ZeniMax was looking to sell itself at the time. They were, Robert Altman was, I believe, the primary shareholder of the company. He was the founder and president, but I think there was still shares involved in the firm. Robert Altman being an established lawyer, I believe he was, in Washington, D.C., and is also, well, he's sadly passed away, but he was also Wonder Woman's husband. Linda Carter's husband. So that's why you see a lot of Linda Carter in Bethesda games, just inside baseball there. ZeniMax was looking at selling itself. Yeah. And they wanted to make themselves more appealing. They typically make very big budget, very expensive games like Fallout, like the Elder Scrolls that take 10 years to make or longer. And so they kind of issued this directive of, hey, try to make live service games or games as a service. Right? You know, we're looking at Destinies, we're looking at things like that. And microtransactions, we want them. We want skins, we want,
heavily encouraged,
things like that added to it. Heavily encouraged that. These are all things that Arcane never did. Arcane never made multiplayer, let alone a games as a service game. And Arcane never made anything that really involved microtransactions, even DLC, really, up until like Dishonored, and that was in Austin. That was Arcane Lyon in France. So the management didn't really have a clear idea of how this was going to happen. And by that management, I mean like game directors and kind of there on up, not hands-on developers. So the developers, the guys in the trenches making this game, the guys and gals in the trenches making this game, they were kind of confused and left without direction. So they were kind of making things and putting things together, but it wasn't a blueprint to follow, and especially an internal blueprint. Arcane lacked this experience, as we just said, and the problem is they didn't announce the game yet, so they couldn't come out and say, hey, come make this live service game with us. They had to just receive applications from people that wanted to make games.
So most applicants were probably looking to make one of their bigger games that they're famously known for.
Exactly. Everybody played Prey. Well, not enough people played Prey. If you haven't played Prey, it's on Game Pass. Go play Prey. It's super fun. Everybody wanted to make these immersive sims. That's why you would go work at a studio like Arcane Austin.
Yeah.
You know, if you wanted to make first-person shooters, you go work for the Call of Duty guys, or the Battlefield people, right? You want to make immersive sims. Arcane is the studio that is most famous for that, I would say. This kind of created a lack of talent in the studio. Not to say they're not talented, but they're talented in a different thing, and this wasn't their thing. And morale plummeted. Senior devs and most experienced people that made Prey had left. 70% of these guys left, and they were just leaving in droves. Exact quote from Jason Schreier: "Leaving in droves." So when Microsoft acquired ZeniMax in 2020, they were looking at selling themselves. They got sold to Microsoft. Many people inside were kind of hoping that Microsoft would come in and go, "What's this mess? Get rid of it. Cancel the project."
Yeah.
That didn't happen. That didn't happen. Microsoft basically said, "Hey, you don't really need to worry about microtransactions and live service stuff. Just, keep it simple. Don't go nuts into that area." And they went, "Okay."
Yet again, another change on clear vision of what they wanted out of the game.
Right. 2 years into development, let's kind of change our vision of the game. Now, they could have left that stuff in, but I think they were more comfortable taking it out. But now they still had this 4-player co-op looter shooter that they had to deliver on, which is kind of way outside of their wheelhouse still. But, we saw Bethesda do this with Fallout 76, right? It came out of the gate really buggy and kind of off, but later on it kind of grew into fruition. It's still very popular, right? So we got its vision later. I don't see that being the case with Redfall. I just don't see how. I don't see how they can make it better. I can see how they can improve the experience of the game, how they can make the frame rate less choppy, how they can make the game more polished, but I don't see how they can make it the game that it should have been, which the game it should have been was Borderlands.
Yeah.
Right? It should have just been a Borderlands-like or a Borderlands clone game. That is what they were going for. They were going for a 4-player co-op looter shooter. That is the benchmark to hit, is Borderlands.
Yeah, the Borderlands games are hugely successful.
Yeah, they're hugely successful for that. They're couch co-op. They are online co-op. Cross-platform. They kind of have everything going for them in that aspect. And it's fun just to hop together with a few buddies and play that game together.
Yeah.
And that's what Redfall needed to be, and it just wasn't. So with that, and kind of related to that, is Microsoft's kind of hands-off approach to game development. Let the developers develop, right? And some could be understood here because they bought this game, or bought the studio and all of ZeniMax with this game in progress. This game was in development. So's Starfield, so's whatever else is in the cooker over at id. Things like, well, no, id shipped Doom after, I think, but just after. But either way, you have all these kind of things in the cooker getting ready to go. Microsoft just kind of went, "Okay, well, you guys do you. We just own you now. Let us know if you need a hand with, publishing it or whatever it is."
Okay.
And with that, Phil Spencer, the boss of Xbox, came out after the release of Redfall, and he joined the Kind of Funny crew on XCast, and he kind of did a mini apology. This was a couple weeks ago. He apologized about the state of the game. The quality level just wasn't there, and he said ultimately that's his job to ensure that. But he did say he wants the studios under him, which is everything at Xbox, to branch out of their genres and their wheelhouses. And he doesn't want to discourage that. So if these studios want to make games that aren't their games, if Obsidian wants to make Candy Crush Saga, they should be allowed to make a game like Candy Crush Saga, right? That's his mentality. And to a point, I agree with that.
Yeah.
But if you're going to do that, you got to help them out, right? You got to at least go, "Hey, here's the names of some people that made these games that are available in the industry. Maybe we should call them up, hire them. You should kind of be issuing checks in order to get the staff in needed, hire the external studios to do support.
Give them the support without muddling with their vision. Let them have their clear vision through the development. Just support what they need to make sure that vision can be met to the quality and the standards that we expect."
Exactly. And Xbox being a premium brand, we expect that from a premium label, right? When you have a game that is coming from a studio that isn't quite what they normally make, there's a lot of hurdles to overcome. If you're working in a different engine or with different tech, there's those things. Obviously, there's quest progression differences and things like that. When you're working on multiplayer, there's who's the host, who's not, and things like that all have to play into it. How does that work? What does that look like? These are all things Arcane had no idea how to reconcile.
It wasn't in their playbook.
It wasn't in their playbook. They didn't have any reference for it. And it kind of concerns a lot of people, but I've been kind of worrying about it since this discussion came up about that, and the state of Redfall was kind of revealed. That what's going on with this Fable game over at Playground, right? Playground makes Forza Horizon, a racing game, and now they're making an open world RPG in a fantasy genre.
Yeah, it's a little on the other end.
It's a little on the other end. Now they're using what they say is a heavily modified version of Forza tech, which is the Forza engine, obviously. I would say it'd have to be heavily modified to do this, but it is a physics engine, so it does work in that aspect. And it does support large scale maps. So
the Horizon maps are
really large, and the way they do the scaling in that is actually there's a lot more room in there than what they give us. They're giving us a lot of detail because the cards are big. A player can be small, so you can actually shrink down your detail level quite a bit. You have a different field of view because you're not traveling at 200 miles an hour over trees, right? So you do have some ways to play with that tech. Knowing how this Fable game kind of has been developed, or at least what they've talked about publicly with it, is that they've spun up a whole dedicated team at Playground to make this. So most of these people are complete new hires. Obviously, some people moved over, and probably some management and things like that. Game directors might have moved over from Forza because they were the ones that came up with the idea to do this in the first place, right? So they came over and started doing that, and then they started hiring up.
Okay.
Right, so they got the tech in order. Let's hire the people we need to make this game. They did get some people from Lionhead. That's been reported numerous times that people from Lionhead, who originally made Fable, is now making Fable again with Playground. So there is some hope there. It appears they're getting the support, but then you hear these rumors like, oh, it's in trouble, but there's no real context of what that trouble is. Right? Nobody's saying, oh, they just can't get it to do this, or they can't get it to do that. Nobody's saying what that problem is. They're just saying it's in trouble.
We haven't heard very much about Fable.
No, we haven't heard about Fable since it was announced 2 years ago at the Xbox showcase. It is time, and we'll talk a bit more about that in a couple stories from now. But it is time that it's here, I think. And the other part of all this is when I was reading the story from Jason Schreier, and I'm kind of going, this sounds really familiar because we talked about this last week.
Yeah.
Except for it wasn't Fable and it wasn't Redfall. It was The Last of Us Factions.
Yeah.
Right? The Last of Us Factions being made by Naughty Dog, who makes single player, third person, action, adventure, storytelling, big tentpole games, AAA, quadruple A even games, like extremely good quality games. And they're making a live service multiplayer game with Last of Us Factions, and it's gone to hell in a handbasket reportedly.
Okay.
Right? As we talked about last week, Bungie came in and kind of went, no, this isn't going to hit, and they've had to revisit that. And you have support studios laying people off that were working on this project. So you kind of, it echoes a lot of the things that happened over at Redfall.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. We'll have to see where any of these things go, whether what happens with Redfall, what future updates they have planned with it, what happens with Factions, and hopefully we get some news about Fable soon.
When is the hands-off approach not appropriate in these situations?
Well, I think Microsoft needs to have a benchmark of quality kind of assessment. Now, I don't know if this is up to Phil Spencer, who's the boss. Like, it's obviously up to him to decide to do it. But I think they need to have kind of maybe a quality assurance ambassador.
Yeah.
And I think that person's who is in charge of that, or should be in charge of that, is Matt Booty, who's the director of Xbox Game Studios properly.
Yeah.
That's his department, is making sure that whatever is coming through is getting the support it needs, all his teams are getting the help, and everything's meeting that benchmark of quality. And I think the hands-off approach is fine. It's kind of like raising kids, right? The hands-off approach is fine as long as they're not sticking their fingers into outlets and covering the couch with, peanut butter or something, right?
Okay.
If they're just sitting in their room reading a book, you don't bug them. They're doing what you want, right? But if they start getting into trouble, then that's when you gotta come in.
All right.
I don't think telling them what to do is the solution. I don't think coming in and saying, Studio X, you're making this game.
Okay, so the studios under Xbox don't require more guidance than they're getting?
I don't think they require more guidance. I think they require more support. They need help.
Okay. Yep.
Right? They need someone to be able to coordinate all these resources, bring in these third parties. The coalition, for example. Was it the coalition? No, it is not the coalition. Sorry, it is, what do they call them now? The studio doing Perfect Dark, the Initiative. The Xbox has some really awesome names for the studios. The Initiative, working on Perfect Dark, has brought in Crystal Dynamics to help them develop Perfect Dark. And that was a decision made early on to get Crystal Dynamics, who makes like Tomb Raider, and they made the Guardians of the Galaxy game, and things like that. But this is a studio with a good pedigree, and they're coming in to help what is supposed to be the be-all and end-all studio in the world, what they self-claim to be a quadruple A studio, to make the Perfect Dark game. So I think they have the ability to recognize when they need help, but I think they need to have a tripwire, let's say.
Do you think Microsoft needs to have a better support system across the board instead of just picking which games that they heavily support and then kind of leave other games to float on their own? Do you think they kind of need to have a better support as a whole for their games and everything under their umbrella?
Yeah, and my understanding about how Xbox Game Studios operates, I think might be correct in this case, because Xbox Studios has acquired, studios like Obsidian and In Exile and Double Fine and things like that, and they just kind of get wrapped up into the Xbox family. But then when they bought ZeniMax, who is Bethesda and Arcane and Machine Games and ZeniMax Online Studios and all these other studios, there's a lot, id Software, I almost forgot them. There's a lot of studios, Roundhouse Games, there's a lot of studios involved in ZeniMax. And when they bought them, they just kind of left ZeniMax intact and just shoved them in there. And ZeniMax, like Bethesda's been publishing their own games. Tango Gameworks, they've made Hi-Fi Rush, right? And they normally make horror games. They made the Evil Within series. So when you see them making a game like Hi-Fi Rush outside of their wheelhouse, hugely successful, I get why they want that hands-off approach.
Yeah.
But you need to get that help. And I think ZeniMax was able to realize internally that they needed help on Starfield, for example, and they got that. But with Redfall, they kind of just went, right? And I don't know if they were just like, you know what, the bridge is already half burned, let it keep on going. It's time to pull the ripcord and just ship the game. I don't know what the reasoning is there. I don't know if we will ever know the reasoning there.
What do you think this means for Arcane Austin?
I think it's a back to basics thing. I think it's like, okay, that didn't work, so why don't we go back to something we know, a Dishonored, a Prey, let's have I don't think Prey needs a sequel, but something in that vein.
Get back in their comfort zone again, kind of feel to their strengths.
Yeah, another immersive sim within their wheelhouse. A sci-fi kind of based immersive sim is exactly what I think they need to make. And I think that's what happens to them. I don't know if they can recover from the damage. That is the problem. It's very CD Projekt Red feeling. When they shipped Cyberpunk 2077 in that state, there was a lot of goodwill right out the window really quick. And to this day, it's kind of like, what are they doing over there? What's happening with their new DLC or the next Witcher game or what have you? Do we have the faith in that? Yeah. And I think that's what's going to happen with Arcane Austin, is the studio that had built a reputation of making immersive sims, even though Prey missed for whatever reason. It missed on a critical scale, meaning most reviewers didn't even touch it. They didn't even market the thing, really. It was kind of a lackluster appearance on that aspect. It is such a good game.
Yeah.
And it's performed well. It's got the second life a few years later when it showed up on Game Pass.
Yeah.
And everybody, including myself, hopped into it and couldn't put down a controller for quite some time. That opening sequence of the game was perfect. Chef's kiss on that. And they have the scruples, but they need to earn back that trust, right? They need to get back to what that game was and do something there.
Well, even though you almost forgot about them, there's a rumor that id Software is ironing out the combat for Starfield.
Yeah, and I kind of talked about that a moment ago, but yeah, so the combat systems in Bethesda games, and by that I mean the proper Bethesda games like Fallout and Elder Scrolls, they're not fast-paced, they're not very smooth feeling. You know, Fallout 3 was kind of really rough with here's the weapon all of a sudden, then you change weapons and it's kind of slow, and the shooting is robotic. You notice this a lot less in Elder Scrolls, but it's still there. And then in Fallout 4 it improved, but it's not like on a Doom level of quality as far as that goes. And id Software, I believe they came in after the last real showcase, or the first showcase of in-game footage was pretty janky of Starfield. It was reportedly not even running at 20 frames a second in the trailer at times. So there was lots of cuts, so we couldn't see how like the weapon reloads were clipping and things like that were happening weird. And having id Software come in, who are the experts in that kind of thing, come in and make it what it is, makes perfect sense. And I think that's perfect use of their time, because really, what are they making right now? Right? id Software just released Doom Eternal a few years ago. I think they're spinning up on a new game. We'll probably talk about that next week. I think it's probably a Quake. But they have a bunch of people that aren't making that stuff right now because they're at this stage of the development process. So that stuff, which happens a little later in the development process, why don't we get those guys to help out?
Yeah, it's smart to use them together and showing support from one creative studio to another. And
again, it's a highlight or a showcase of what ZeniMax is doing internally, at least with something that matters like Starfield.
Yeah.
They should have been doing that with Redfall, and Microsoft should be kind of taking the keys away from Bethesda or from ZeniMax in that aspect and going, no, quality control ends with us, and it's our job to make sure that this is meeting our benchmark of quality, because it's not Todd Howard would go out on an apology tour, but it's not these game directors that are really out there doing that. It's Phil Spencer, Matt Booty, and Satya, and these people that are going out and talking about why this matters to them, why this game came out in this state.
Yeah.
So they need to be the ones to fix it, in my opinion. On to our next story is Xbox teasing Fable. Xbox social media account this week tweeted a video, basically showed a bunch of glitter kind of on top of an Xbox controller, and it led out of this room, I'm assuming a living room, goes through the house in a few spots, a few clips, and then it winds up in front of a computer screen with the Xbox Game Showcase logo and June 11th on the screen. And the entire time it was playing fantasy music. A lot of people online assumed that this was teasing Fable. It kind of feels like it's teasing Fable.
It really does.
But if it isn't, then that's pretty bad, right? Like,
somebody in marketing got something mixed up there if it's not a tease for Fable.
And it's not the first time they've done something like that either.
True.
They've done this a few times in the past, and it's the stepping on rake. Jeff Grubb was talking about that on his show. It's kind of like the stepping on a rake thing, and he's like, they're almost going to step on a rake, right? If this game isn't in that showcase on June 11th, they've stepped on that rake. Yeah. They've done it to themselves.
Yeah.
And it could be, maybe it's just for something completely unrelated.
If they don't have Fable, do they come out and say it beforehand because we're all talking about it and say, hey, we're sorry, no, that's not what we meant?
I think you have to. And I think that needs to come from Playground themselves.
Yep.
I think they just need to release a statement that says, hey, this game isn't going to be there.
Yep.
Or they leave it and it is going to be there, or it's not. I don't know. But I think they need to come to some sort of solution with that. As I said earlier, the game has been rumored to be in development issue realms, right? They have problems with it. Nobody can confirm whether it's there or not. Everybody that I've watched this week, every news story about it, everything was like, with the exception of one, has said, I don't know if it's going to be there, because everybody I've talked to says it either is or isn't.
Conflicting theories.
You're getting conflicting reports from people that should know, so it isn't. The one story that says it's there is from Paul Tassi over at Forbes, and he said it's got to be there. But he's kind of going off the same logic of, how dumb are you for teasing this if it's not there?
Right.
Like, you're literally taking your shoe off and eating your own foot, right?
Yeah, well, in that case, if it's not there, then they have to say something prior to the show.
I think they need to manage expectations. Yeah. So, and even if that goes to say, hey, we do have something to show you guys, can't wait for June 11th,
yeah,
tune in. They need to, I think, set the record straight one way or the other in between now and then. Yeah. It was announced 2 years ago. We did talk about this a little bit in the previous story there, but it was announced 2 years ago, and it was rumored to be in development for a while before that.
Okay.
So it is time. Yeah. We should be seeing something. And, Phil is not a CG guy, right? Phil Spencer's gone on record saying he doesn't like CG trailers. They do a lot of CG trailers for announcements, especially because they announced a game like Fable way early in development. So they didn't have, assets built or anything like that to do an in-engine thing. So, me as a consumer, I'm okay with a CG trailer at that stage, because it's just like, hey, this is what we're doing. Get excited for it.
Yeah.
Right. And then the next thing they show you has got to be at least in engine. Yeah, it's got to be at least in engine. It could be pre-rendered in engine stuff, but it needs to be in engine. We need to have the feeling for the game. And then the closer you get to release, the closer I need that to be a real thing, right? So like the release trailer needs to have the graphical UI and stuff like that in it. So it's an important thing that they need to consider what they're doing here.
So what's your prediction? Is Fable going to be at the show?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. I think it has to be. For all those reasons and then more. They haven't come out and said it isn't, right? I think they would be smart, especially looking at what happened with the PlayStation show last week. I think Xbox needs to be smart in how they manage expectations. Jeff Keighley's gone ahead and kind of set expectations for what to expect at his show. I think Microsoft needs to do the same thing here. And since they haven't, I think it's going to be there. And I think we can at least expect to get something in engine out of them.
I agree with you.
My big question is, if the game is in trouble, why are we taking the time to make this in-game trailer? Make this trailer with these assets if the game is in trouble, right? Yet again, we haven't really had any confirmation of what that trouble is.
Well, and like we were saying, we haven't heard much about Fable.
No.
So it's really hard to predict. Like, their game may not be in trouble.
Maybe it's not in trouble anymore, right?
Maybe they fixed it.
There is, these trailers take a long time to make, and they take a lot of planning and coordination. But there is the possibility that they were able to spin up enough information or enough of footage or assets and ship it off to some third party and go, here, make a trailer.
So if it is at the show, do you think we can rest easy that the game's not in trouble?
Yeah. Yeah, if it's at the show, I think the game isn't in trouble, and we can expect things like that. We'll do more about our show predictions next week, right before the show.
Get closer, yeah.
Because we got a lot of things in between now and then that we're going to be recapping as well. So next week is kind of going to be a show blowout, I think.
All right.
Next story: Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. It is coming to PC finally. This comes by way of Tom Warren over at The Verge. Nixie's announced in a tweet and a PlayStation blog post that the game is going to launch on July 26th on PC. And just let me scroll down here so I can read all these abbreviations. It's going to launch with ultra-wide support, unlocked frame rates, and DLSS 3, FSR2, Intel XS. I want to go XESS, but XS upscaling support. So basically, it doesn't matter what kind of chipset you're running, what graphic card you're running, you're going to be able to get that upscaling support. Okay. Ultra wide is really cool. Unlocked frame rates is really cool.
So why wasn't this in PlayStation's showcase?
That is the $1 million question.
This is news.
Yeah, literally they tweeted this like 5 days after, and I don't know if maybe they couldn't have the date narrowed down in time. Maybe they don't have a trailer in time. I don't know. None of that really makes sense because they had a trailer on the blog post.
Yeah.
They had a they don't have minimum specs or anything yet, but they have a date. It should have just been in that showcase. It, we're talking about a showcase that had 3 or 4 first party things in it.
Well, we were looking for some more.
And I had Nixies on there for going like, where is Ratchet and Clank?
Yeah.
Where is God of War Ragnarok? Where is Horizon Forbidden West? So let's.
Yeah, we were looking for a little bit more.
This should be part of the PlayStation show. This does completely fit into PlayStation's kind of thing that they want to have. I believe 50% of all their titles available on PC by 2025. So it does fit into that. They also want to release usually within a year on PC on after they've released on PS5. So I think that's pretty standard. I just don't know why it wasn't at the showcase.
Yeah. Well, an SSS. Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's all good. Try it again.
An SSD is the letters I was looking for there. Do you think that'd be required to experience the game as intended, like in the PS5?
It's interesting because this is kind of the first case of this happening where a game that was specifically designed to take advantage of the PS5's architecture with that SSD, the zero loading scene sequences, to go through these portals, these rifts, and go into different dimensions, essentially different levels, constantly without loading screens. That is the selling feature of the game, because you don't ever reach the end of the level. You just kind of go through this next portal.
Yeah.
And sometimes that could happen right after another, right? So that is a big feature of this. It'll be interesting to see how Nixies gets around that for people without an SSD, or whether they just make an SSD a requirement.
So you can say it, no problem at all. I'm kind of jealous now.
And to be fair, there's a lot of acronyms on the screen, so we have a lot going on there. Our next story is this week, the law firm of Nintendo of America has sent a letter to Steam operator Valve that it considers the emulator known as Dolphin, which emulates Nintendo platforms such as GameCube and Wii and some of the handheld stuff. It considers it a violation of its intellectual property by the way it uses its code to kind of break its copyright protection, essentially. So it considers it a violation of its IP under the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, see, DMCA. And that should the popular emulator actually wind up on this Steam service, Nintendo's going to take further action. As a result, Valve has released a statement saying that they have and will continue to cease distribution of Dolphin, which is weird. It hasn't gone live yet, but it said they have put a full stop to everything, and they will continue to maintain a full stop on it until a resolution has been released by both parties involved, which is Dolphin and Nintendo, which that will happen exactly never, because Nintendo doesn't want it to happen.
Why does Nintendo want to hide its classic titles away from us?
Why indeed? I get they need to protect their property. I get that. But this is much more different than going after bootleggers that are releasing the latest movies or games on a torrent service or LimeWire or whatever the kids are calling it nowadays. These are games that are locked on GameCube or on Wii, especially the Wii stuff or the 3DS stuff, because it's unique hardware. You can't play these anywhere else.
Yeah, unless you have an old Wii set up in your basement, you're kind of out of luck to go experience that again.
So our only hope is Nintendo comes up with a client to emulate them on for like the on the Switch, Nintendo Switch Online thing, or they remaster them or remake them to come out on to the Switch or modern hardware. That's our only hope for them to come out.
It's an awful lot of IP that we'd be waiting a long time for them to sort through and do all that with.
There's a lot, and there's stuff that just would never get that treatment.
Yeah.
And there's things like that might not even be worth the effort because of the way the Wiimote works and things like that. Yeah. But they can, Dolphin mimics that really good using the mouse and things like that for a certain activity. There is adapters to pair up Wiimotes to your computer, so if you can get your hands on that kind of stuff, you can still do that.
Nintendo is notoriously strict on a lot of their rules and IP.
Well, look what they did to the one guy. He's got to pay basically 30% of his wages for the rest of his life until he pays like $20 or $12 million or something off for distributing pirated games on his website. You know, it's crime, I get it, but like you're taking away this guy's livelihood for the rest of his life because of one little mistake. The irony is that guy's last name was Bowser. You know, Nintendo's going to do what Nintendo's going to do, but and I kind of get not having. It's not like they're taking Dolphin off of the internet. Dolphin is continuously available everywhere else. It's just not going to have that Steam integration that people were really hoping for. So I guess we're just going to have to do crimes the old-fashioned way in order to play these games, right?
Sure. That's great advice there.
Plead the fifth. Konami, in an interview with IGN, has confirmed that neither Kojima or Shinkawa are involved in the Metal Gear Solid remake from Konami and Virtuos.
So that means no new voices.
No new voice recordings, no new direction.
So that limits it.
That limits the remake dramatically. So that means basically the story's not going to change. So we're looking at a 1-to-1 remake.
Yeah.
Which, there's that double-edged sword, right? You know, what does a Metal Gear Solid game look like without Kojima?
I don't know if I want to know.
What does it even make sense, right? He's the only mad scientist that I think could really pull off a game like Metal Gear. That's not to say somebody couldn't take over the reins down the road, but when you're talking about something as important as Metal Gear Solid 3,
yes,
right? I think it needs to be
favorite. Yeah,
it needs to stick to it. And that being said, if you're not changing the voices, are you really going to be able to change the script? You're not going to be able to change the plot line. Right, so maybe we're safe that he's not involved, which I never expected him to be involved, because him and Konami, they had their words and it's done, right? And he's doing his own thing and he's happy now. I don't think they can really goof it up. I just don't know what it means for the rest of it, right? Metal Gear Solid 3 was selected because fans love it so much, as you kind of were talking about. But it's also the chronological start of the series, and this is from that interview. They were saying it's the chronological start of the series, which until they make a game that makes it not the chronological start of the series, it does make sense. Yeah, it does make sense because it is, you know, spoilers. You're playing as Naked Snake, Big Boss, kind of in this game, so you're seeing the kind of the formulation of what becomes Metal Gear in this, and you see a lot of those introductory characters. That become staples in the first two games and the later games too. So it is a very important game as far as the series go. And I think if you're introducing people into the series, on paper it makes sense to introduce them chronologically. But a lot of that stuff that worked in Metal Gear Solid 3 worked because it was a gotcha mechanic. It was like, there's no way that this is this person, and then you find out it is that person, and it's like, wow, that's cool, because that's this person from this game, and that, you know, that's so-and-so, right? And that made it kind of special, at least for me as a person that played them chronologically, in order of release, not in order of taking place. We'll see if it works. They did say if the reception's good, they're going to do more. They are obviously trying to Capcom this and do Resident Evil style remakes of all their games, really, because they're doing it with Silent Hill as well. So we'll see. It's better than them making pachinko machines and ignoring the rest of us, right? PlayStation Plus games for June. They were announced. They are NBA 2K23, Jurassic World Evolution 2, and Trek to Yomi. So what do you think about that?
To be honest, nothing really jumps out at me for June, unfortunately.
Well, I played a fair bit of Jurassic World Evolution 2. I did that when it came on Game Pass there. I'm really happy that more people are going to get the chance to play it. I think it's a fun game, especially if you like management sims.
Yes, yeah.
It kind of has that theme park tycoon feel to it. And then, you know, dinosaurs break loose and cause havoc. So there's that.
Who doesn't love that? Yeah.
But, you know, you're opening a theme park. You're you're putting in the attractions, you're setting the prices, you're figuring out what this food stand's going to sell and what that food stand's going to sell. You got to look at trends and things like that. So it's fun from that business management sim point of view. And again, it's Jurassic Park, so all hell breaks loose. It's always a good time.
Yeah.
Trek to Yomi. It's a fun side-scrolling samurai game. It's a very indie 2D game. It's definitely worth checking out, I think, and it's free. So PlayStation guys, go grab it. I think it's a fun game to have in your library and tuck away. And then I don't even think I need to describe NBA 2K23. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's not my thing. I'm not a big sports game player. If I am, it's usually an NHL game. But if you are a basketball fan, or if you've been curious about it, you haven't picked this up for some reason, now's your chance. It's there. It's free. Does it for that. Next story. Live from LA, the Summer Game Fest, hosted by everyone's third most favorite chef, even if he spells his name wrong, will kick off next Thursday, June 8th at 3 p.m. Eastern. We're going to try to go live and do a talk over the event that happens. So that works good with my schedule next Thursday. So we're going to see if we can do that. What do you think happens? What could be there?
I think Kojima's going to be there.
You think he's going to call up his best buddy and be like, Hideo, come on down?
Well, have we missed him yet?
And we haven't missed him at any of these Keighley events, really. He's usually pretty good at throwing something there. So I think maybe we get a chance at having a something. I don't want to go out and say Death Stranding 2, but he did show it off at the Game Awards.
Yeah.
It looks to be further along than I expected at that time. Maybe we get something out of that. He does love his trailers. I did say Death Stranding 2 would likely be at the PlayStation Showcase. This is just as likely.
Yeah.
So if it's not here, then...
You did say if it wasn't there, that it would probably be here. So.
Right. And we do have, Kojima has a few other projects happening. He has a smaller project. And he has the Xbox... he has Project Overdose. And he has the Xbox cloud game coming. So he has 3 games in development. Something from him's got to show up this week, right?
Yeah. Now, do you think we get an Elden Ring DLC?
Well, From Software did say Elden Ring DLC is going to come, and they kind of left it at that. It's supposed to come this year, I believe, maybe early next year, which would be 2 years after the release of the game. So it's time to show it off. They did the reveal of Elden Ring at Keighley's first Summer Game Fest.
So it'd be kind of poetic to do their DLC reveal.
I think they really liked it. It is, this is going to come up a couple times here, I think, but it is kind of neutral territory. It is in between PlayStation and Xbox. Yeah. It's a fanboy-free zone at Summer Game Fest, so it's a good opportunity. And Bandai Namco really, who's the publisher, they have a good relationship with Keighley as well. So I think it makes sense to see it there. And that kind of ties into Armored Core as well, because Armored Core is made by them, made by From Software, published by Bandai Namco. They showed the first trailer for it or the reveal for it at the Game Awards back in December. I think we see the gameplay reveal here. The game is coming this later this year. I can't remember if it's holiday or fall, but the game is coming this year. So I think we get a firm release date. I think we get a gameplay reveal trailer for that game. It just kind of all makes sense with it.
Yeah.
So, other than that, I think maybe there's a chance we see Mortal Kombat 1.
Yeah.
This new Mortal Kombat reboot, whatever you want to call it. I don't know where else it fits. Right? There isn't really like anything happening. I don't even know if the parent company of NetherRealm, who makes Mortal Kombat, the parent company is Warner Brothers. I'm not even sure if there's a person there that knows they make games anymore. So I don't know if they know how to market it. So I think Ed Boon just calls up Keighley and goes, hey, we're bringing this here. Barring that, there is a chance, because they have a good relationship with Matt Booty, who used to run Midway, which is who NetherRealm used to be. I think there's a good chance that Matt Booty gets the deal and they get to show it over at the Xbox Showcase. But this makes more sense. It is multi-plat. It is not just an Xbox game or a PlayStation game. So it does make the most sense to be here.
Well, last time we got The Rock. Who do you think we get this time?
I don't know, but it's going to be cheesy, right? We always get that awkward celebrity moment. We get, remember we had Al Pacino.
Yep.
We had, what's his name? The Free Willy dad, Michael Madsen last year.
Yes.
We had him up there, and yeah, it was pretty bad. I don't know if Vanilla Ice was at the event. I know he was in the game that they were promoting, and that was cheesy as hell. Yeah, I think we get it. I don't know who it is. Maybe they get Pedro Pascal out there to promote Last of Us coming to Blu-ray.
That wouldn't be cheesy. That would be awesome.
I don't know if Pedro Pascal could actually be non-intentionally cheesy, but it'll be interesting to see. The other thing is we can't really discount Call of Duty from being there. I know I said it makes sense for it to be at the PlayStation show, but because of the order of the shows this year, it was weird, and I didn't know what to expect there. PlayStation does have the marketing deal, but Sony's actively going against what Call of Duty owner Activision wants by fighting them on this Activision Blizzard Microsoft acquisition. So with mommy and daddy arguing, with Sony and Microsoft sitting here arguing, I think the best thing for Call of Duty to do would be go to what Mike Minotti over at GameSpeak said this week was go to Switzerland.
Yeah.
Right? And Switzerland's Jeff Keighley. Right? This is neutral territory. This is, mommy and daddy can't fight here.
Yep.
Right? You guys do what you're going to do, but we're going to talk about our game.
Yep.
That being said, Call of Duty could put out a tweet and they'll still sell. They'll be the number one selling game on PlayStation this Christmas because they put out a tweet.
Call of Duty is Call of Duty. It is a self-driving machine.
Right? But it's really hard to nail down where this is going to be, and especially since it's this rumored Sledgehammer game, which I say rumored very mildly because it's all but confirmed by them. Yeah. That this is going to be the Modern Warfare kind of 2.5 Sledgehammer game.
I think we'll see a lot of indie games come out of.
Yeah, Summer Game Fest is a great spot for indie games to show up. Yeah. There's going to be a lesser AAA just because it is that, right? Yeah. EA's might throw in a couple things. Ubisoft might throw in a couple things. I don't really expect that kind of thing. I think we're going to see, we've probably talked about the AAA that's could potentially be there. I think we've nailed all that out unless there's something I'm completely missing.
It'll be fun to see
But I think this is where indie games can shine. They can get their 10 minutes of in the spotlight. They can really show off what they're doing, and the way Summer Games Fest works with the press component in the in-person event, it's really advantageous for these indie devs to get there with their publishers. So I think it's really good. And almost every year we get that indie darling that shows up that's like, this could be game of the year. We get our Chicories and things like that everybody goes, this is game of the year. Stray last year was in the talk about it. Yeah. Right? And indie cat game is almost going to be its own category, right. I think, for the Game Awards. But I think we really need to understand that this is great for indie games. So we're going to see a lot of indie games on Thursday, and we're going to get a handful of the sprinkles in there for the AAA people, right?
Are you excited for the summer gaming season to finally start?
Yeah, I'm excited for it to finally start. We had a bit of a false start with the PlayStation Showcase. Yeah. I don't want to say it was bad. I just think it wasn't as great as it should have been, I think. But this is the true start of it. This is where the hype is, and Jeff Keighley's great at standing there and getting everybody hyped up and excited for it. So I think it's a good opportunity for everybody to kind of come together for it. And that's why I'm looking forward to watching it and hopefully doing a live stream talk over with it. If I can't do a live stream for whatever technical reason, the internet here can come and go. I will do a react that evening. So I will do a recap. Probably just be me, but we'll do a quick recap of it that evening. And it's, it is the beginning of the season. We've got a lot of stuff coming up. We got obviously the Xbox Showcase on June 11th. We've talked about that already. I don't have the dates here, but off the top of my head, we have the Devolver Digital Direct, which is always fun. They always do that big corporate marketing storyline, and then people are getting beheaded on stage, and it's always hilarious. And it's always Devolver that has the game that is going to be Game of the Year indie game. right? It always seems to be Devolver, and this, I can't wait to see more of that plucky squire.
Yeah.
And that's Devolver.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to see more of that. I want to see a lot of this stuff. We have the Future Games Show, which isn't Futures in the Future, it's Future Publishing. Future Games Show and the Future PC Games Show. I believe those are Saturday next week, so don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure they're Saturday. And then we have the Ubisoft Forward, and there's some other stuff as well. So we will do a show next Friday.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about what has happened up until Friday, the Summer Game Fest, and anything that happened before that. And then we're going to discuss kind of what's happening. Obviously, the big one being the Xbox Showcase, maybe a bit of the Ubisoft Forward. 3 of the 4 titles that they've teased so far, we know what are. So it's nailing down that 4th one, and I might be able to do some work on that over the next week. So we'll talk about what to expect there, and then we'll do kind of the news recap. I think the news is largely going to be the game shows next week, unless Microsoft does something crazy with the ABK thing, which is rumored. Quick update about that, because just before we went live, I was reading a story that the president of Microsoft, Brad Smith, is meeting with the Prime Minister of England next week to discuss this. And the rumor is he's basically going to say, we are going to pull all Activision products out of your country and complete the merger. That's the rumor. So he's going to force...
Wow.
Reportedly,
Putting his foot down.
reportedly, they're going to foreclose or close the sale.
Yeah.
Pull all Activision product out of the United Kingdom. So no Call of Duty for the United Kingdom. Which you think sounds insane, but we're talking about $70 billion, right? They could make maybe $700 million in sales out of that. Yeah. So let's, they're going to pull it out, and that'll be kind of the ultimate solution there. With all that being said, that's the news.
Yeah.
Right? So let's talk about some games. Diablo 4 Early Access started today. And people my age the world over start calling in sick to work. The game officially drops on June 5. All progress carries over. So that's really good. And so far, everybody's given it really great reviews. It's sitting at an 87 on Metacritic, which is pretty cool to finally see something out of these guys land. Blizzard's needed a win for a while. They've got it.
Do you finally give Diablo a try again?
That's the big question. I played a lot on my PC back in like 1998, 1999, somewhere in there. I played a lot of it, and then I was like, this game is awesome. And then my computer went, pfft, and I don't think I've touched a Diablo game since. And I don't know if it's going to be good for me, based off of my addiction to Tears of the Kingdom, to get in to scratch that itch particularly, but we will see. I don't know if I would go out and pay the $80 for it right now and play it. But if I got an opportunity down the road, once the servers are more accessible and stuff like that, to do a trial or something, I probably will, and give it a shot then. We'll see. Street Fighter 6 also came out today, and the response is staggering. The game's sitting at 93 on Metacritic, which is, I believe, the second best game of the year behind Tears of the Kingdom, which nobody's... If a game beats Tears of the Kingdom on Metacritic this year, I think it's at a 96. This year's a phenomenal year for games. Anyways, the other big one this year was Metroid Prime Remaster.
Yeah.
And that was, I believe that's a 90 or 91 on Metacritic. So we have a lot of games sitting there right around that 90 mark, which is pretty perfect for a game. Like, you're never going to get 100. I think the best game is Ocarina of Time at 99. And I think that's mostly people tugging on heartstrings when it comes to it, because when you think of it, it's probably not a 99. And this is the first of the 3 big fighting games this year, reportedly. We know Mortal Kombat 1 is to come out. I believe they confirmed September. If not, it's rumored September. Mm-hmm. And Tekken 8 is on deck as well for this year. So my big question is, are fighting games good again?
Maybe. I was always the button masher when I played a fighting game.
Yeah. To be fair, I was mostly too. There was these Mortal Kombat games. I'm having trouble remembering the titles of them, but they were story-based Mortal Kombat ones where you got to explore as a world, and you had to fight. You went and learned from one of the existing fighters in the game, mm-hmm. and they told you stuff, and you had to go around. I can't remember what they were called, but oh, they were fun, right? Annihilation, maybe they were PS2 era games, so they were quite a while ago. They were really fun.
Yeah,
And,
I was very good. I'm not sure how, but I could hold my own.
Where I was going with that is I played those games quite a bit, and you had to master each character's or the characters you play through. You had to master all their combos and everything in order to be able to progress the story.
Right.
And I did that for every character in the game, for both of those two games that did that. And I was really good at that. And then I picked up, like, I was like, oh, I can just pick this up again. It's like riding a bicycle. And years later on a PS4, I pick up the controller and I start playing Mortal Kombat. And so I don't know, but I think there's some good opportunity there.
We're definitely seeing a revival in them.
I think we're seeing a revival of them. And if they review well, and they're all received relatively well, like varying cases. I think Street Fighter 6 has got a lot of affinity for it because Street Fighter 5 missed in such a spectacular way. Mm-hmm. So I think Street Fighter 6 has that, the fans just going, oh, thank you, they nailed it, going on a little bit with it. Not saying it's not a great game. I think it looks amazing. I haven't had the chance to pick it up. I did play a bit of one of the tests that they did, but since then I haven't touched any of it. I didn't buy it. I might go and pick it up. We'll see. But I think if they all review well, if Mortal Kombat reviews relatively well, and Tekken 8 reviews relatively well, or gets received well by the fans, there's the slight chance we get a Killer Instinct game. Phil Spencer's been wanting to make a Killer Instinct game for quite a while, and Iron Galaxy was too busy making Rumbleverse to make a Killer Instinct game. And Rumbleverse just got shut down. So, guess who's kind of doing nothing? So, I think maybe there's a chance there's a Killer Instinct game.
Is that kind of on your wish list a little bit there?
I never liked them on console. I played them in the arcade.
Oh, okay.
Right? I drowned quarters. For you kids, an arcade was a place you would go to play video games. They had them in movie theaters and such. And anyways, I put a lot of quarters into that, and like... California Speed and Cruis'n USA. Rush 2049, I really liked it because it was all neon and cool. I drowned a lot of quarters into Killer Instinct and I can't think of the name of it now, but the Virtua Cop, where you hit the pedal and you popped in. Those were my two go-to kind of non-racing games at the arcade.
No Duck Hunt?
No. I did the deer hunting thing once. And I went to pull the rifle up, and it's got the cord, and it wouldn't come up all the way because I was too tall.
Oh.
So I just...
we're just aging ourselves with these games.
I just put the gun back in. The game where I always had to do it if they had it at the arcade that I went to, because you never seen it at every arcade, was the big, the 18-wheeler one, where you're driving the big truck.
I don't think I ever saw that one.
That was always a fun one for me. So that's kind of it for the games that have come out this week.
Yeah, been a bit of a light week.
A bit of a light week, but two heavy hitters. Technically one heavy hitter, but you have the other one coming out next Tuesday, so there's that. Time to talk about what we've been playing.
Well, I haven't had much gaming time this past week, but I did play the Hogwarts Legacy, and I very much enjoyed playing that game. There was a few cons to it, but overall, it was much higher expectation than I was thinking when it came out. So I really loved all the different side quests you could do, all the cute little animals you could go catch, and I would have liked to see your character have more of an effect on the world around you as you played the game. It was kind of weird, aloha-mooring into somebody's house and they're just there. They don't even notice you've come in, it wasn't super interactive stuff in that way. But in other sense, I think, the graphics in the game, the gameplay, the mechanics of it, it was so well. It was capturing, and I thoroughly enjoyed playing that game. And like I said, the little critters in that you get to play with were just adorable. So... I definitely enjoyed that.
You were playing that on the PS5.
Yes, I was playing that on the PS5. Yes.
So that's good. They do have good bones there for an RPG. I think they just need to thicken it out a little bit, kind of color in more of the lines.
As an out of the box for some of we've seen games that have been made off of movies and stuff like that, and their gimmickry, it doesn't always play out well. I think that Hogwarts Legacy played out very well within the realm of what we were looking for. I think they
Licensed
really
games,
hit that. Yeah.
Yeah, licensed games are usually built to that budget, and this is what we can afford because we're paying so much for that license.
True.
And I think they did. That's probably one of the best licensed games there's been since The Simpsons Hit and Run, something like that, maybe. So it's good.
Yeah. Nope, so that's mine. Yours is oh my. Let's guess.
Tears of the Kingdom, pretty much all week. Carbon Mechanic Simulator 2 came out on Game Pass. I played it. It's basically Carbon Mechanic Simulator 1, just called number 2. It's a little bit different, but not overtly dramatic. And I didn't really expect it to be dramatically different. It dries up kind of really quick if you're doing a long play. But for something to kill, if you got 15 minutes or whatever in between doing this and doing that, boot it up and play it. I have the first game on my Switch, and it's a lot easier just to kind of sit down and grab it and play it while you're waiting for something to happen. But so it's a little weird booting up the console and sitting down for it. But my curiosity got the best of me, and it's basically the same game. But other than that, lots and lots of Tears of the Kingdom. I do want to get through Tears of the Kingdom. As much as I want to savor it, I need to get through it before my games come out. Yeah. The Starfield and things like that come out, because that's where it is. And I got this mountain of a backlog. You do. Of games to get through. I've started and I've got 3/4 of the way through Like a Dragon. I got Judgment 2 that I got to get through. I got so many games that I've started and not finished.
Not enough hours in the day to game.
God of War Ragnarok, I've booted up and haven't gotten any further in. So there's so many games that I just need to get through, and I want to get through, but I got this Tears of the Kingdom thing happening, and
it's called an addiction.
It's definitely an addiction, and it's just so fun.
It's worthy of it, though. Definitely worthy of it.
And when I've waited this long for a Zelda game, as a lot of people who love Zelda games can attest to, you want to play it, you want to savor it, and you want to poke at all the little corners in the game and all the little secrets and things. And it's so much fun. And every time I think I come up with the most diabolical cool creation, and I open up Twitter and there's somebody else roasting chickens or something. So it's just such a magical game. I have gotten a little bit further in it. I have completed 3 of the 4 temples that you start off with. I don't know if there's more after that or not. So I just have to do the Gerudo one out in the desert. Other than that, I've been poking around finding all the geoglyphs again, and completing some of those little side quests and stuff like that. So it's fun. It's cool. It's Tears of the Kingdom, and it is currently my game of the year. So. And Starfield's got a lot of... I love Bethesda RPGs. I love Bethesda games so much. Starfield's got a lot of work to do if it's going to topple Tears of the Kingdom off my list. So it'd be interesting to see how that goes. That is pretty much it.
Yeah, I think that wraps up what we have to talk about today.
I've downloaded a ton of other games onto my Xbox and on my computer. There's all the Epic Games free games of the week on. I've been doing that. I got probably 50 games on this thing I've never even touched. I've got all these games on the PlayStation Plus. We got the premium tier on that, and I keep on. Oh, that's on there. That's cool. That Kenna Bridge of Spirits. Boom, downloaded. Have I touched it? No. So I got all these games downloaded for when I have that I am going to get burned out of Tears of the Kingdom moment happening. That hasn't happened.
Nope.
Yeah, I haven't had that moment where I don't want to play that game. Basically, if I'm doing anything, it's not playing that game, I am not happy because I'm not playing that game. Yeah. Right. There's very few things that are giving me that itch or scratching that itch right now. And but maybe I get through something else this weekend.
We'll see. I doubt it.
I doubt it too. And it's so handy because you can carry it with you, and it's so much fun. It's spectacular. I know it looks. Everybody's saying it's dated. Back to Tears of the Kingdom with that. You see all this discourse about, oh, they reused the map again. Well, obviously you didn't even play the game yet because you didn't even see the fact that the map has 3 layers now.
Yeah.
And there's fundamental things that have changed about the map, the core map. Yeah, they reused some of the basics, but the basics reusing that allowed them to do all this other cool stuff, right? And then I saw one report that was talking about how, and this is from a reputable organization, I'm not going to put them on blast, but a reputable news outlet basically saying, like, this is a showcase of the performance of the Switch because this game that came out on the Wii U looks the same as the Switch game. And, like, but have they looked at the sun? Have they looked at how things are happening in Tears of the Kingdom? Because it's not. The environment is so much different. Mm-hmm. The way the grass moves is a little different. The way the sun reflects off of things. There's moments where you get blinded from looking into the sun in the game. That did not happen in Tears of the Kingdom. Or, sorry, in Breath of the Wild. Mm-hmm. So they fine-tuned a lot of these smaller things. And if you haven't played it because you're afraid of the performance or something of it, don't. It is good.
Yeah.
It is more than good. Is it running at 30 frames? Probably, I think. I saw a report that it's locking a steady 24. Does that matter? Not in the slightest. Not in the slightest. It's still a fun, awesome game. Don't let these specs fool you when it comes to that. These people that are saying, oh, if it's not 60 frames a second, it's bust. That's only true for certain things, and Zelda's definitely not one of those things. There's quite a few games that can get away with not being 60 frames a second, and most people would never notice if they didn't have a counter on the corner of their monitor. It's definitely well worth the experience. If you're new to Zelda as a whole, pick up Breath of the Wild. Do yourself a favor, actually. You can get these vouchers on the Nintendo Switch if you're a Nintendo Switch Online member. You can get these vouchers, and for a price, you get 2 games, right? And it's less. It's like buying these at a 25% discount.
Yeah.
So you can buy Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom for the price of basically buying 1.5 games. And start at Breath of the Wild and just play your way through. And I think most people will like it and find it enjoyable. You don't need to play the other 50,000 Zelda games to understand what's going on here. But if you play this, it'll give you enough of the idea of what's going on that you could go play A Link to the Past.
Want to go play the other.
Or, yeah. All the other ones, most Zelda games are standalone adventures, barring Majora's Mask, I think, is probably the main one. Well, Zelda 2. Majora's Mask. And some of the handheld stuff kind of went back and forth a little bit. But most Zelda games are standalone adventures. And you don't need to know more about what happens. It helps if you do, but each game gives you the same information over and over and over again. So pick it up, play it, enjoy it. They're fun. Other than that, that is it, I think, for us this evening. Yeah. So we will be joining you guys next week for sure on Friday. We are going to do something on Thursday around this Summer Games Fest, whether we go live or just do a quick recap, kind of reaction thing afterwards. We will see. Might be some more content in the pipeline in between and now and then as well. So we make sure you click that bell so you get notified when that happens. Other than that, thank you very much for joining us.
Had a great time here tonight.
Always fun. All right, and we will talk to you next week. Goodbye. Bye.